Welcome back to another Android box review. I've got the A95X Pro that's come in for testing. This was sent in via BangGood. An interesting thing about this is it's running the Android TV operating system, but I've listed out the key features on the screen for you. Fairly standard specification on this, apart from that voice control microphone that's built into the remote, which we'll have a look at in a second. Very simple layout, two USB ports, micro SD card slot, and here's your connections on the back. Very much standard stuff, Ethernet, power, digital, out, HDMI, etc. And on the underside, usual casing that we see. There's no pads on this, they're just raised points. And this is the bundle that you get included. HDMI cable, and I have the Euro version of the power adapter, so I'll be using a plug to convert that. UK one's not really available. And the user guide, very generic and basic, so we'll skip straight to the remote, which is a lot more interesting. This has, apart from the microphone button in the middle, we have a fairly nice layout, and it's a decent brushed metal effect. Your receiver here is the dongle, which you need to plug in to the Android box, and you also have an LED on the top, and just below that is the microphone. So it's a nice little remote, an improvement over many Android remotes, but it isn't an air mouse. It's a digital system, so you can adjust the speed, but it's not a proper air mouse. Not too bad on the LED, wasn't too bright, fairly well diffused, and there was a small update on this box, so I installed that. And then you'll have to go through the system here where you sign into your account. You can do that either via a PIN number or just use your normal email, and then you get into the Android TV main screen. This is quite different to the standard look on the Android boxes that I've looked at before. It's also encrypted, so I had to video it straight off of the screen rather than the device that I normally use for capturing. The reason for that is because you can play back Netflix at full HD, and you can also play YouTube back at 4K. So most Android boxes won't let you play back Netflix at full HD unless they're certified. So this one is, because it's running the Android operating system. But the TV one, the Android TV, just like the Xiaomi Mi box, which also will run Netflix at full HD. So they've done some improvements on this. YouTube has been updated. It works quite nicely. You can use the voice control for this, or you can also punch in manually. It works quite well, not quite as good as the Mi box on the microphone, but it worked well enough that I was able to use it. You can not just search YouTube, you can search through apps as well and ask things like the time and the weather, the Google Assistant essentially. Whether or not you use the 4K, it depends, but that's a nice option. Again, most Android boxes aren't going to give you that option. Usual playback is full HD, sometimes it's 720p as well. Now the Play Store is a bit of an up and down side to this. You have a lot less apps than the normal standard Play Store. It's probably enough here to get going, but if you want to use other apps, you're going to have to side load those apps. So I will link back to my Mi box video where I show you how to side load apps. That's worth looking at. That's the only real complaint I have with the Android TV operating system. So this is running Android 7, so not quite as up to date as the Mi box, but still it's decent enough, as in you have some improvements on the layout as well. So the apps, these are the standard apps you get included, nothing too dramatic here. You don't have Kodi, but you can install that from the Play Store, and your settings pull out on the right hand side. There really isn't that much to do on this apart from the casting. Now the Miracast, there is an update that came a bit later on that I installed, which fixed a problem with that. So if you go into the wireless update, and it's quite a big update as well, it's just under 800 megabytes, that fixed the stuttering that I was getting with the Miracast, and that's now working quite well. So quite pleased on that sort of things. You can dive into the full menu system if you want. There really isn't that many settings to do. You don't have any Bluetooth, there's no dual band Wi-Fi. You can only really do things like add accounts and HDR effects. So I ran some benchmarks just to give you an idea on the performance of the box, and it's pretty much about average performance in this price range. Reasonable enough Wi-Fi speeds. 3D scores were okay, nothing too dramatic for light to moderate gaming. The multi-core score on Geekbench was also okay. Again, this is at this price point about what you're going to get. The Mi box is quicker, it's also better featured. You have dual band Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, but it does cost a bit more. So that is the downside with that. So would I recommend this box? Keeping it as quite a short review, yes, if you want a full HD player for Netflix, or if you want to use the layout of the Android TV and you don't want to spend too much, particularly when you're browsing around things like YouTube, it does work quite well, and the over-the-air updates do actually work on this box. A lot of them they don't. Downside, no air mouse built in. Wish they'd have done that even at this price point, and the specs are a bit limited as well. So what I would have liked to have seen was a few improvements there. So I would say if you have the money, I would go for the Mi box over this. If you want to keep the cost down, this one might be worth looking at.